Okay, so let's talk about Cory Littleton for a second because, there was a lot of hype for him and the Raiders when he got signed by them, and it hasn't exactly worked out too well. So let's talk about what are some of the concerns. And the first thing I wanted to notice is just how is he fitting in with this Raiders scheme? And you can see a lot of issues just with that. So that's what we're going to start off with. So like this play, it's going to be a cover 2 zone. And this is something that I think is interesting to talk about is with the Los Angeles Rams, while they did sort of shift to a different scheme last year, back when Littleton was there, they primarily played a lot of cover 3. When they were playing zone coverage, which was pretty frequent, that's most of what I've seen. Admittedly, it has been a couple years since I've watched, but I came back and I watched some Cory Littleton tape for this video, and I saw mostly cover 3. So I'm assuming that that's mostly what they did, and you can see some issues with him trying to transition a little bit to the cover 2. One of the big differences, I would say, is you just sort of see the halfback becomes a little bit different in a cover 2. And what I mean by that is, so, you see on the screen, it's cover 2 zone, and basically the way that a cover 2 zone typically works is you have 5 guys over the middle of the field. There's 5 eligible receivers, so you just cover whoever is the closest eligible receiver to your zone. It kind of makes sense that way. You refer to this as the number 1, number 2, number 3 receiver closest to the sideline that you're on. So for Littleton, you see the zone where he's covering. He's covering the number 2 receiver to the offense's left, which is to the defense's right. That's what his job is, which currently is the wide receiver, but it's worth mentioning that can change. So watch how right when this play starts, the wide receiver immediately runs over the middle, which now means that he's the number 3 receiver, right? Because he's the 3rd closest to the sideline in that area. The number 2 receiver has now become the halfback. That's the guy that Littleton should be covering, but you see Littleton is a little bit slow at getting over there. And to me, I would say this is probably the biggest factor that's gone into it was really a slow start. I do think he picked it up a little bit towards the end of the season, so that gives me hope. But I would say that that's probably a big part of it is the fact that, it's different rules. This is early on in the season. There's different rules for a cover 3 defense than a cover 2 defense. In a cover 3 defense, your corners are kind of helping you out a little bit more. It's almost like you have 6 guys there instead of just 5 because both corners come in and there's only 1 safety deep. Now there's 2 guys who are staying deep, so there's just a little bit less and you have to kind of make your decisions a little bit quicker. And so look, this isn't even a horrible play at all. This is something you kind of could expect from a guy who's playing in a new scheme is he might give up some of those plays early on when he plays for them. That makes sense. It's not a big deal. I'm not bringing up this play to sort of see he's terrible. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just using it as what I consider to be a good example of some of the stuff that is just some of the difficulties you might face going to a new scheme. So this is another one where, again, it's going to be that cover 2. It's cover 2 zone, and again, he's covering the same zone. The one in white, that's where he's covering. And watch how when New Orleans runs a very similar play, Littleton is very far deep right here. And a good chunk of this is, okay, he just doesn't know exactly what to do. And not just because, it's his fault, he's a dumb player, he doesn't know how to play cover 2 zone. That's not really it at all. I mean, anyone can play cover 2 zone. It's not like he's never played this scheme before. But a big part of zone coverage is just knowing where your teammates are and knowing where people are going to be covering. Because for Littleton, for all he knows, he should be covering the number 3 receiver or the number 1 receiver. But typically, most defenses are going to have you cover the halfback right here. And he just wasn't aware of that. And a big part of it just could be, communication, knowing where your other guys are, things like that. Although I would say on this play, he probably should know that he should move in a little bit and at least put himself in position. Because as you see, this is going to end up being a very big pickup. And really, Littleton wasn't in that play to begin with. He was completely far away. And that's his fault. I mean, he should have done a better job at getting in position. We can blame coaching too. I will blame coaching. I think that coaching is a big deal. But a lot of what Littleton does well when he was with the Rams wasn't just him being some super freak athlete. I mean, he was undrafted for a reason. He's not the most athletic. He usually got by on making good reads and understanding that defense, and he doesn't really understand this defense. Or again, at least he didn't early on in the season. He did start to pick it up towards the end of the season, so I have some hope. But, a good chunk of it is also going to be coaching. I do think he started to figure it out a little bit. But again, let's talk about what he did well. So right here, perfect example of the cover 3 that he was able to thrive in. So it's going to be a cover 3 zone. You see the zone that he's covering, and you even see the play concept on that side of the field. So there's a player running deep, and there's another player who's kind of running to Littleton's left towards the bottom of the screen area. And Littleton knows, okay, well, my teammate to my left, he's going to be covering the go route a little bit, or whatever route that is, because he just sees a receiver out wide like that. So Littleton knows he might have to keep an extra eye on the other player. And like, watch, as you see, that's exactly what he's doing. He's really kind of playing this perfectly, where he's aware of the halfback who could potentially be in the area and could run over and try to make a play on him, while still being aware of the player to his left, knowing that there isn't any real help that way. So he's just doing the smart thing of kind of playing in between and is in the perfect position. But part of how he can be in the perfect position is he knows where all his teammates are. He knows if it is a check down, well, he has another teammate who can run over and make the play. If it is a throw, towards the sideline, he has players over there. He's very aware of how this defense works, which allows him to make the read on the quarterback. And as you see, he is going to step in front and he is going to get this interception. So this is the hope, if you're a Raiders fan, is that the disappointment was because of stuff like this. It was because he didn't know what to do in the system. You get better coaching, things are going to work out. And I think that there is some real logic behind it. I really do. For someone like Littleton, who, listen, he ran like a 4.74. That's not the slowest 40 you'll ever see, but he's also not one of these, 4.4 linebackers that can have the sideline to sideline speed and don't have to worry about putting themselves in the best position because they'll find a way to make the tackle anyways. Littleton does need to get himself in position, and position is so important in coverage for a linebacker. If you're a linebacker playing coverage, positioning is everything, especially zone coverage, and you just see him out of position a good amount, which part of it is on the coaching staff, part of it is on him. And again, I think I'm more willing to blame the coaching staff just given the fact that everyone was constantly out of position for the Raiders, so it leads me to believe that, yeah, it might not just be that they have a bunch of players who couldn't figure it out. Maybe there's a reason for it. And again, as I said, he did start to figure it out towards the end of the season a little bit more, which is promising. I also should be clear, I'm just talking about one thing right here. There's a myriad of factors. It's never just going to be one reason and everything else is fine, but I wanted to use this as an example of kind of to paint a bigger picture, because you see the one example, you can now see, okay, I get the kind of idea. These are the kind of mistakes that he was making, and this is kind of why it didn't work out so well, whereas, we all expected it to work. I mean, this was supposed to be some great situation for Littleton, and everyone was saying, oh man, perfect fit, gets to play in a zone coverage scheme, good coverage linebacker, they could use that, this is perfect, and it completely backfired, and he hasn't looked great in a Raiders uniform just yet, but I have a feeling this could work out. I think there's a chance that this works out. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. What do you guys think about Cory Littleton? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that it's not really his fault on some of these situations? Or do you go the opposite way? Do you think that he was never good and it was just, he was good in that Rams offense, but isn't that talented of a player? It's interesting stuff. I always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.